taken from Paul's second letter to the church of Corinth, reading from the 8th chapter, in a series of readings from these letters that Paul is writing to the early church. Now, as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in utmost eagerness, and in our love for you, so we want you to excel also in this generous undertaking. I do not say this as a command, but I'm testing the genuineness of your love against the earnestness of others. For you know the generous act of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, so that by his poverty you might become rich. And in this matter I'm giving my advice. It's appropriate for you who began last year, not only to do something, but even to desire to do something. Now finish doing it, so that your eagerness may be matched by completing it according to your means. For if the eagerness is there, the gift is acceptable according to what one has, not according to what one does not have. I do not mean that there should be relief for others and pressure on you, but it is a question of fair balance between your present abundance and their need, so that their abundance may be for your need, in order that there may be a fair balance. As it is written, the one who had much did not have too much, and the one who had little did not have too little. Here ends the reading from the epistle. If you turn in your hymnal to page 762, we will read responsively Psalm 130. Page 762, Psalm 130. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord.
Lord, hear my voice.
Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications.
If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand?
But there is forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered.
I wait for you, my soul waits, and in your word I hope.
My soul waits for the Lord, more than those who watch for the morning.
More than those who watch for the morning.
O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with God is great power to redeem.
It is God who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities.
The gospel this morning is taken from Mark's gospel in the 5th chapter. In this particular passage, there are healings that take place, healings that open a doorway to a deeper understanding of Jesus' ministry and to our discipleship. Listen for God's word. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." So Jesus went with him. And a large crowd followed Jesus and pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She'd endured much under many physicians and spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She'd heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth. he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, some people came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When Jesus had entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years of age. At this, they were overcome. They were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. May God add blessing and understanding to the reading and hearing of God's most holy word. Will you pray with me? Touch us with your Spirit, Holy God, that we may come alive to the awareness and understanding and touch of your heart with us, that we might be your disciples, alive and well, that bring healing and wholeness into this world. Amen. Who is this Jesus that people seek him out for healing, for wholeness, for the opportunity to turn from the whatever, all right? From illness to health, if you will, or shadowed existence to abundant life? You could read many layers, many observations, many perceptions in this. Take it literally, take it figuratively, but take it. Who is this Jesus that people seek him out for healing, for wholeness, for the opportunity to turn from the ways of selfish living, turn from the ease of sin and self-degradation, turn from a societal slide into immorality, oppression, implosion from overindulgence and chemicals that are absorbed? Who is this Jesus? As we turn to and adore the one who is our God, and embrace in daily living and embrace in daily breath, we are clearly woefully neglectful of God's presence in the daily round of life and breath. Jesus knew his law and the prophets. He knew the hymn book of the Psalms. He took time to be alone with God, and called God Abba, his Father. And he took time to look within, that he might face the powers and principalities of this day. Who is this Jesus that people seek him out to follow him? His touch. In his teaching, his living, his example, Jesus compelled response from those who would follow him. Remember the one who was doing it all well, Jesus said, "Then go, sell what you have and give it to the poor, and follow me." An example of the type framework or a real honest-to-goodness response: go and do. Or the one who merely wanted to go and bury his parent, mom, his dad, his loved one, whoever. And Jesus says, if you have to look back from the plow, are you really prepared to follow me? It pushes the question, who is this Jesus that we follow? That we might touch the hem of a garment and believe that we're going to be healed. We can look at the 12 disciples for whom it was more than a come follow me. For in their response had to be a willingness to risk, to step outside the box, to leave for 1 minute or many that which was known and comfortable in order to learn and lead others to that which was unfolding by God's grace and light. People didn't know the outcomes that the risking would take. We have 4 Gospels that we struggle with trying to understand. What's in this? That feeds us, that can feed the world and bring hope and goodness, graciousness. So people seek Jesus. Jesus is sought out. And this woman with a flow of blood is healed. Jesus is sought by a leader of the congregation, and his young daughter is restored to life. Jesus responded, didn't he? Will we live into that same faithfulness that grounded Jesus? Can we live like God will do as God has promised? And just show up. To be a voice, to be a presence, to be a face that says God does care for you. Hate has no part in our lives. Prejudice should have no meaning in our hearts. When the Apostle Paul's writing to the Corinthian church, and again, we have bits and pieces of his letters, and scholars have tried to put the threads that, why is Paul writing this at this time and all of that type of a thing. And Paul is writing to the Corinthian church, and he's asking them to respond by taking up a collection for the church in Macedonia. Or should I say, the church in Macedonia is being asked to take up a collection for the church in Jerusalem. And his point is, you look closely about what he's saying, there's something about financial generosity, but he really is saying it's more simple in what he says. He says, just respond. Respond with what you have, not what you wish you had. Oh, I wish I had this so I could give this. Just respond. Show that you care. Care for sisters and brothers in faith. And if you care for sisters and brothers in faith, you'll care for others as well. So there's a generosity that's asked. And at times it may be about what's in your wallet. But friends, more deeply, more broadly, over and over and over again, the generosity that you're being asked to share is what's in your heart. Jesus responded. I remember many who responded in the sense of through the sharing of self in my own growing up and in my own life. Those that took the time to care, took the time and gave time. I'm sure many of you shared similar threads, youth group leaders, Boy Scout leaders, I know 4-H, big brother or big sister, coaching of all sorts, whether it's sports or other activities, mentoring roles. Those who work on the premise of there's always just a bit more that could be shared. That extra bit that made a difference. And as far as I could tell, folks did it really from the conviction that sharing who they were, not who they thought they should be, but who they were. The deeper conviction of sharing who they were would make a difference. It would make a difference in someone's life. And they didn't seek out accolades in any capacity. They just wanted to make a difference. And many that I knew did that from the underpinnings of faith. Others clearly did it because they felt it was the right thing to do. But they showed up. They responded. And they responded out of what they had, not what others thought they should do or be. So we remember. Certainly there's a part that we remember those who were fed at this table, and tables just like it in so many settings around the world. Your own growing up in different places you visited where you've been welcomed, with the breaking of the bread and the pouring of the cup, simple actions done in sharing and giving and receiving set the tone and pattern for the giving and receiving in so many other settings. I've said it before, that this table, small portions, is just a small indicator of the larger portions of generosity, again, from your heart, that feed discipleship and that offer hope in our world today. Respond. We've heard these words before. They come up various times on the internet and other settings. Live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and leave the rest to God. We get stuck on all the other stuff and just hold on to, well, can we leave that to God? Well, think about, if you believe God's promise, last week it was Jesus stills the storm. Peace, be still, and the storm stops. What if you said that the next time a storm erupted in your own life? Peace, be still. I believe God is with me. I believe the love of God sustains me. I believe there's more strength in my being centered than in being scattered. Respond as if you believe God will do as God has promised, and that's the challenge before us again and again. As a nation founded on freedom of conscience and conviction, and yet there are always those questions about your conscience and your conviction if there's disagreement. And again, I go back to it's a conversation. It's a learning. It's a willingness to try and understand and set aside assumptions in order to learn from one another. I believe the larger desire of God for us and our world in our day, I'm going to say that again, the larger desire of God and for us and our world in our day is for each of us to respond generously with justice, with mercy and grace. Respond to human need as best you are able, not with what you think you could do or should do or what other people want or expect, but from your heart to someone else. It's been said that justice is when you get what you deserve, that mercy is when you don't get what you deserve, and grace is when you get what you don't deserve. I'm going to say that one again. Justice is when you get what you deserve. Yep, get that one. I've gotten it before. I mean, you get it? All right, yeah. Mercy is when you don't get what you deserve. I'm sure we've experienced that too, each of us. And grace. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound is when you get what you don't deserve. The unconditional love of our living God, again and again and again. So as we remember friends who have taught us about justice and mercy and grace, and remember those who responded in faith, and I trust we can include ourselves in that as well. And the many who were hungry, your sharing of self, and those whose lives are going to be changed because of your sharing of justice, your sharing of mercy, and your sharing of grace. Yeah, we each do those. It may be by a touch. It could be by a prayer. But none of us will know. None of us will know unless we just show up and respond.